And so now we welcome into our studio Matt Davison, former Husker, currently looped in with the situation that Nebraska has with football and men's basketball. And let me ask you, how has the Penn State scandal affected things on the Nebraska side?
Well, I think there's no doubt that Nebraskans have been watching this thing unfold in front of our eyes, and that it maybe has affected things this week. But like everybody else, we're just watching it unfold. We just happen to be the team that has to play Penn State this week, which makes it a little bit different. But this football team has to get ready to go because Penn State will be ready to go on Saturday afternoon. And so, you can say maybe it's been a distraction, but I think Bo Pelini has done a good job this week of keeping his guys focused on the game at hand and letting them know that Penn State's going to be ready to go. They have a lot to play for this week. And so I think both teams, once they get out there at noon on Saturday, hopefully they forget about everything else and they're able to go out and perform.
How has Bo done that? Like, what is the mindset of the kids going into this game?
Well, he definitely let them know that, hey, you guys have to focus on the game, and we don't want you talking about it publicly. We don't need any comments from anybody publicly. This is a very touchy situation, obviously. And so, he did a good job of leading this program, leading the team, and letting them know what he wanted out of them this week, and that was to focus on the game. There's a lot to play for this week, and there's things that are a lot bigger than football being discussed this week. But at the same time, as a player, all you can do is get yourself ready to play the game.
And maybe not just focus on this week, but also forget about last week. I mean, at home, you're a top 10 team in the country, and you lose to an unranked Northwestern. What happened in that game?
That's a great question. I don't know. If you look at some of the stats from this game, it's hard to believe Nebraska lost. Taylor Martinez throws for almost 300 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. Nebraska wins the turnover battle. They knock Dan Persa out of the game in the second quarter. Nebraska's at home, and they lose this football game somehow. It's unbelievable. But really, it came down to up front. Northwestern was the more physical team, and I can't believe I'm saying that. But you really look at the film, and both sides of the ball, Northwestern was able to win, and that's how they were able to come into Lincoln and get a W.
We talked about this in the commercial break, but you think in a way, almost Nebraska is sort of learning the hard way that this is a physical conference, top to bottom.
It's really physical, and Nebraska's had some injuries up front. You look at Jared Crick has gone down, Thad Randall has gone down on the defensive line. So Nebraska's really thin on the defensive line right now, and this is a physical league, and I think they're starting to see that now. We knew it coming into the Big Ten, but at the same time now it's really starting to take its toll. And so we'll see it again this weekend with Penn State. They're very good up front on both sides of the ball, and so the physicalness of this league is really starting to take its toll. Hopefully Nebraska can hold up for their sake, because there's 3 really physical games yet ahead of them.
You mentioned the defense, and so let's go with them. They've been improving so much week to week to week the last 3 weeks, and then comes Northwestern, and they go from giving up just 3 points in the game before to 28. How do you explain that?
Well, I wish I could explain it, but I guess what it comes down to is these two teams had, if you look at Michigan State game, Nebraska played really well against Michigan State defensively. Then you look at Northwestern, much different attacks. And so Nebraska likes that quarterback that can sit in the pocket and maybe can't run around quite as much like Kirk Cousins. You look at Northwestern and they throw Kane Coulter out there, they throw Dan Persa out there. Those guys are running around, they extend plays. They were really able to expose Nebraska's lack of a pass rush up front. They were able to expose Nebraska's inability to cover in the slot. That's really where they attacked Nebraska's defense. And so, 2 different attacks from Michigan State to Northwestern, maybe that's part of it. But definitely Nebraska's defense this year has been up and down. They've been really hard to figure out, and you really don't know what you're going to get week to week.
You mentioned this earlier, but Taylor Martinez did have a pretty good game. I mean, even though they lost, his numbers were season highs, almost in every major category. Where does that rank among his best performances that you've seen him have?
It might be his best game. I mean, statistically, it might be his best game. Decision-making might have been his best game. Looked like he really had things figured out. He knew where to go with the football. He was decisive. He sat in the pocket, did a great job of delivering the ball. And really, you look at the numbers, 289 yards and 2 touchdowns, no picks. I think he had 9 incompletions, 4 or 5 of them were drops. So he was on the money. And if you'd have told me he was going to play like that, with the way Nebraska's offensive line had been playing leading up to this game with Rex Burkhead and his ability to run the ball, if you'd have told me that Taylor Martinez was going to play that game against Northwestern, I said there's no way that Nebraska was going to lose that game, especially since we won the turnover battle as well. I wouldn't have thought that would have happened.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Burkhead's now scored in every single game they've played. Matt Davison, always good to have you stop by the studio.
Thanks.